There is a moment, quiet, almost surgical, when your nervous system realizes something your mind has been avoiding. You scan your phone. No messages. You look around the room. No one leaning in, no one reaching out, no cavalry on the horizon. And in that stillness, the truth lands without emotion. No one is coming. Not to fund your idea, not to defend your reputation, not to carry you when you're tired. This moment shatters most people. It feels like abandonment, like a cosmic mistake. They ask the oldest, weakest question in history. Why me? But for a certain kind of mind, this isn't collapse. It's ignition. This is the baptism of the outlier. You're here because you already feel it. The pressure of an ambition that doesn't fit the rooms you're in. You're exhausted from translating your vision into a language small minds can tolerate. You're tired of waiting for permission, for approval, for a team that never materializes. Stop waiting. The belief that success requires support is the most expensive lie ever sold to a capable person. History doesn't move because groups agree. It moves because individuals decide. Being alone was never a defect. It was always leverage. Here's the first cut we have to make. The addiction to validation. When you seek support, you're not asking for help. You're taking on debt. Every favor carries a receipt. Every investor owns a piece of your spine. Every emotional crutch can be kicked away at the worst moment. You think you're asking for a safety net. What you're really building is a web. It catches you, yes, and then it keeps you exactly where you are. The reason you haven't moved isn't a lack of support. It's the habit of scanning the horizon for it. You must accept the 0 point. The 0 point is radical isolation. The moment you inventory your resources and see nothing but yourself. Most people panic here. You won't. You'll recognize it as the cleanest position on the board. 0 support means 0 masters. No one lifted you up, so no one can pull you down. If you build it alone, you own the throne outright. This is cold rationality, not bitterness. We don't mourn the empty room. We use the space. Notice how loneliness gets misdiagnosed. When you crave support, you're craving to be loved. You want applause before the performance is finished. That need leaks power. Neediness always does. The more you explain your vision to people who don't share your altitude, the smaller it gets. Desperation has a scent. People back away from it instinctively. The pivot is simple but brutal. Stop trying to be loved and start earning respect through competence. Respect doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what you can do. This demands a new fuel source. Encouragement is unreliable. Defiance is not. Look at the unanswered texts, the polite indifference, the quiet exits. Don't turn that into sadness. Turn it into focus. Indifference sharpens the blade. When no one believes, the market is open. When no one helps, the spoils are yours. Imagine a general abandoned behind enemy lines. Does he weep about loyalty? No. He studies the terrain. He moves in shadow. A single figure, silent and adaptive, is harder to kill than a parade. Isolation forces asymmetry. Asymmetry wins. Speed becomes your advantage. Large organizations crawl under the weight of consensus. You can pivot your entire life in an hour because there's no committee to consult. No meetings about meetings. No permission slips. You don't need a board of directors. You need a mirror. Isolation isn't punishment. It's a filter. It removes the drag of mediocrity. It keeps out the allies who would have turned into anchors the moment things got heavy. So how do you work when no one is cheering? You enter the ghost phase. If you have no support, you have no audience. And if you have no audience, you have no reason to perform. Most people fail because they talk their energy away. They announce the goal, get a dopamine hit, absorb doubt from unqualified opinions, and stall. Silence seals pressure. Pressure becomes heat. Heat becomes movement. When you don't vent ambition, it condenses into work. Use the luxury of solitude. No social theater, no forced celebrations, no maintenance of masks. Let the mask fall and let the engine run. Obsession is called pathology by people who never built anything. In reality, it's prerequisite. You must become technically undeniable, so good that support becomes irrelevant. Ironically, that's when it arrives. People love winners. They avoid strugglers, build in silence, appear with results. But don't romanticize this path. There's grief here. You will mourn the life you imagined. The cheering section, the understanding nods, the friends who would grow with you. Hold the funeral. Let it hurt. You'll doubt yourself in the quiet. That's the wilderness. You've left the herd but haven't reached sanctuary. Don't turn back. You can't unsee what you've seen. This is the birth of self-architecture. You become your own authority. The commander drags the tired version forward. Short-term cruelty becomes long-term mercy. With zero support, weakness has nowhere to hide. The feedback is immediate and unforgiving. That's a gift. Concrete teaches faster than cushions. This is where the myth finally dies. You don't need support to succeed. You need resolve, silence, and a spine. The empty chair beside you isn't absence. It's a throne, waiting for you to grow into it. Once you accept the 0 point, a second transformation begins quieter, more dangerous. You stop asking why this happened to you and start asking how this shapes you. This is where most people fold. They mistake isolation for rejection and crawl back toward noise. But isolation, when chosen, is a forge. It burns away dependence and leaves behind structure. If no one is watching, you are finally free to build something real. Here's the mental inversion you must lock in. Support doesn't create strength. Pressure does. Support cushions failure. Pressure educates it. When you're alone, there's no one to blame. No one to outsource thinking to. No one to lean on when execution gets uncomfortable. Every mistake lands directly on your nervous system. That sting forces adaptation. This is why people with endless help often stay fragile. They never develop the reflexes. You will. Understand this clearly. When someone helps you, they also shape you. Their fears leak into your decisions. Their incentives bend your strategy. Their limitations become ceilings you didn't agree to. Zero support removes interference. Your thinking becomes clean. Your decisions become sharp. There is no dilution. You are no longer negotiating with invisible expectations. This is where you must master emotional transmutation. Loneliness generates energy. Most people waste it on self-pity. You won't. You will sublimate it. Pain is not an obstacle. It's fuel. The average person numbs discomfort with distractions. Endless scrolling. Cheap pleasure. Digital anesthesia. You will do the opposite. You will feel everything fully and then channel it into output. Loneliness becomes longer work sessions. Rejection becomes precision. Anger becomes velocity. You must deliberately build a Pavlovian loop. Pain triggers production. No reply? Write better. Low account balance? Learn sales. Doubt creeping in at night? Study strategy until the noise collapses. This is how you turn emotion into machinery. While others are paralyzed by feeling, you're propelled by it. This is capability in its rawest form, the ability to impose your will on circumstance. Now comes a rule most people resist because it threatens their identity. You must stop talking about what you're building. Silence is not secrecy, it's containment. When you speak too early, you vent pressure. You also invite interference. Opinions from people who haven't earned access. Their hesitation infects your momentum. The ghost does not explain. The ghost works. When a goal stays locked inside you, it builds internal heat. That heat is what carries you through resistance at hours when supported people are asleep. Solitude also grants something rare: total immersion. You don't need to attend social obligations that add nothing. You don't need to perform friendliness. You don't need to be available. Your time collapses inward. Focus compounds. Obsession sharpens. The world calls obsession unhealthy because it threatens the comfort economy. In reality, obsession is the price of escape. You must become undeniable, not popular, not liked. Undeniable. That means technical mastery, strategic clarity, results that don't ask permission to exist. When you reach that level, support becomes irrelevant, and that's when it appears. People back certainty. They avoid uncertainty. This is human nature, not cruelty. When they return, and they will remember this, they're not coming because they believe now. They're coming because it's safe to believe. They want proximity to momentum, not partnership in struggle. You will be polite, you will be calm, and you will keep distance, not out of resentment, but out of memory. Access is earned in winter, not summer. To survive this phase, you must reparent yourself. There will be mornings when the weak voice negotiates. Snooze, delay, comfort. You cannot lose that first battle. If you lose to the alarm clock, you signal surrender to your own biology. Discipline begins before motivation wakes up. You impose structure not because you feel like it, but because you decided who's in charge. Build protocols, not wishes. 2 deep work blocks a day. Phone off. Door closed. No dopamine leakage. 4 hours of real output beats 14 hours of performative busyness. Information discipline matters too. Your mind is your only asset right now. Fill it with noise and you get noise. Fill it with strategy, philosophy, technical skill, and you become dangerous. Every night, audit yourself. Not gently, honestly. Did you move the needle or just create motion? You don't have a boss. You are the boss. Be a harsh one. Correction is not self-hate. It's respect for your own potential. Ignore the lie about networking. Networking is for people without leverage. If you enter rooms empty-handed, you're a beggar with good manners. Build first. Skill, product, proof. When value exists, connections form automatically. The market finds necessity. Make yourself necessary. This is the paradox of zero support. It forces you to become everything. Marketer, strategist, operator, psychologist, builder. You become a generalist with depth, a system in human form. Specialists are replaceable. Architects are not. Look at your empty contact list again. Don't curse it, thank it. It's forcing evolution. It's teaching you to stand without scaffolding. This phase is not loneliness. It's sovereignty under construction. At some point in this process, something unsettling happens. You stop feeling sorry for yourself, and that scares you more than the pain ever did. Because pity was familiar. It was a story. And stories give people something to hide inside. But when pity disappears, only responsibility remains. This is where the real separation happens. Most people don't fail because they lack resources. They fail because they refuse to let go of the identity that needs an excuse. With zero support, excuses evaporate. There is no one to impress, no one to reassure you that you're doing great, no one to soften the truth. Every day becomes a direct confrontation between who you are and what you produced. This is unbearable for people who rely on emotional permission. For you, it becomes clarifying. Brutal clarity is lighter than comforting lies. Now you must understand a darker truth about human behavior, one Machiavelli grasped centuries ago. People do not abandon you because you are wrong. They abandon you because your path threatens their sense of safety. Your ambition exposes their inertia. Your silence reflects their noise. Your refusal to complain invalidates their excuses. So they disengage, not out of cruelty, but self-preservation. Once you see this, resentment dissolves. You stop expecting understanding from people who are loyal to comfort. This is where you reframe rejection. Rejection is not an evaluation of your worth. It's an early warning system telling you who cannot follow where you're going. If everyone supported you from the beginning, your vision wouldn't be disruptive enough to matter. Outliers are lonely by design. Evolution does not move in groups. It mutates one organism at a time. Here's the critical shift. You stop seeing yourself as unsupported and start seeing yourself as unburdened. No one to manage emotionally. No one to convince. No one to carry when their enthusiasm fades. You gain the most dangerous advantage of all, speed of decision. While others negotiate alignment, you execute. While others seek reassurance, you iterate. While others wait to feel ready, you move. This is why solitude produces asymmetric results. You can think thoughts that would get diluted in a group. You can pursue strategies too aggressive for consensus. You can abandon ideas instantly without politics or wounded egos. The lone operator adapts faster than any committee ever could. In warfare, this is guerrilla advantage. In life, it's dominance through flexibility. But flexibility requires emotional hardness, not cruelty, but control. You must learn to separate feeling from function. There will be nights when doubt visits. It always does. The mistake is believing doubt requires discussion. It doesn't. Doubt is just noise from a nervous system adjusting to unfamiliar altitude. Let it speak. Don't obey it. You're entering the valley every outlier walks through. The stretch where you've left the herd but haven't reached proof. No applause. No validation. Just work echoing back at you. This is where many turn around. Not because they can't handle failure, but because they can't handle invisibility. They want witnesses more than results. You must want results more than witnesses. This is where the villain narrative becomes useful, not because you become evil, but because you stop needing approval from the people who doubted you. Take every ignored message, every smirk, every subtle dismissal, and feed it into a furnace. Anger, when disciplined, is a cleaner fuel than sadness. Sadness collapses posture. Anger sharpens it. You don't rage outward. You refine inward. History is full of people who invented insults just to ignite performance. They didn't wait to be wronged. They weaponized perceived slights. You can do the same, not to stay bitter, but to stay moving. Pride, spite, defiance. These are not sins when they are temporary engines. You can switch to cleaner energy later. Right now, you need heat. Understand this clearly. People who rely on support grow soft. Safety numbs instinct. When failure doesn't hurt immediately, learning slows. But when you're alone, the feedback loop is immediate. If you don't work, you don't progress. If you don't adapt, you stagnate. This pressure awakens dormant parts of your mind. Creativity spikes. Focus deepens. You start seeing angles others miss because they're sedated by comfort. This is where you become anti-fragile. Stress no longer weakens you. It educates you. Problems stop feeling personal and start feeling technical. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" you ask, "What variable do I control here?" That single question separates builders from complainers. And now comes the quiet shift others won't notice yet. Your identity changes. You stop thinking of yourself as someone trying to succeed and start thinking like someone building inevitability. There is no rush, no announcement, no dramatic reveal, just steady accumulation of leverage. Brick by brick, skill by skill, decision by decision. This is the stage where your old life becomes incompatible with your new trajectory. Certain conversations feel hollow. Certain relationships feel heavy. Certain habits feel insulting to your future self. You don't make speeches about it. You simply withdraw. Not angrily, not theatrically, cleanly. This is not loneliness. This is strategic isolation. You are no longer asking for support. You are building proof. And proof doesn't need permission. By now, the silence around you isn't empty anymore. It's dense, heavy, charged. This is where most people misinterpret what's happening and sabotage themselves. They think the discomfort means something is wrong, that the lack of affirmation is a signal to pivot, soften, or explain. It isn't. What you're feeling is pressure building before movement, like tectonic plates locking before an earthquake. Nothing looks like it's happening until everything does. This is the phase where discipline replaces emotion entirely. Motivation becomes irrelevant. You no longer wait to feel ready. You operate from protocol. You wake up not because you're inspired, but because the system says it's time. This is the difference between amateurs and architects. Amateurs negotiate with their moods. Architects enforce structure. Structure outlives feelings. You must now confront the most dangerous enemy of a man with zero support: entropy. Freedom without order decays fast. When no one is watching, the mind looks for shortcuts. Sleep in. Scroll, drift. Treat autonomy like vacation. This is where most people rot quietly, not from failure, but from comfort masquerading as rest. You cannot afford that, not afford. When there is no external authority, you must become ruthless internally. Create laws, not intentions. Morning is non-negotiable. The first battle is with inertia. Lose that, and the rest of the day collapses. Win it, and momentum carries you. Deep work is sacred. No notifications, no context switching. 4 hours of immersion produces more leverage than weeks of fragmented effort. This is where asymmetry becomes real. While others drown in interruption, you compound focus. Your information diet now determines your ceiling. If your inputs are shallow, your outputs will be too. Cut noise aggressively. News, drama, performative motivation, none of it builds power. Study things that sharpen decision-making. Strategy, psychology, systems, craft. This is not consumption for entertainment. This is armament. You're building an internal library you'll draw from under pressure. At night, you audit. Not gently, not theatrically, honestly. Did today move the needle or just burn calories? You don't self-flagellate, but you don't lie either. Correction is respect. Self-deception is betrayal. When you fail, you adjust the system, not your self-worth. Systems fail. people adapt. Here's a rule that will feel uncomfortable because it strips illusion. Stop chasing connection while you're still building value. Networking before leverage is begging with better lighting. You don't walk into rooms empty-handed and ask to be taken seriously. You become so useful, so competent, so rare that rooms rearrange themselves around you. Build first. Visibility comes later. During this stage, you'll notice something subtle and unsettling. You're no longer lonely, but you're also not comforted. You're focused. There's a quiet intensity replacing the old emotional volatility. You're less reactive, less explainable. This unnerves people who are used to accessing you easily. They'll say you've changed. They're right. Change is the point. You'll also notice the temptation to reveal progress early, to post, to hint, to seek micro-validation. Resist it. Premature exposure weakens outcomes. When you reveal too soon, you invite opinion before inevitability. Let results speak first. Silence preserves edge. Mystery creates gravity. When you finally appear, you don't announce. You arrive. Now understand this. The absence of support has forced you to become multidimensional. You no longer rely on a single skill. You understand the whole machine. Product, distribution, psychology, execution. This makes you dangerous, not because you dominate others, but because you can rebuild from scratch. Lose everything tomorrow, and you still own the factory, your mind. This is where fear changes flavor. Early on, fear was abandonment. Now fear is stagnation. The idea of slipping back into dependency feels suffocating. You've tasted sovereignty. You won't trade it for comfort. This is how identity locks in, not through affirmations, but through irreversible experience. And something else happens here, quietly. You stop fantasizing about revenge. You stop caring who doubted you. Not because you've forgiven them, but because they're no longer relevant variables. Power simplifies perspective. The higher you climb, the less you look sideways. Your attention narrows toward outcome. When people eventually reappear, and they will, notice how different the interaction feels. They don't ask how you're doing. They ask what you're doing. They don't offer advice. They ask for proximity. Momentum changes posture. Success speaks a language excuses can't translate. This is where restraint matters. You don't gloat. You don't relitigate the past. You don't explain the cost. You maintain distance with calm professionalism. Access is selective now. Not because you're bitter, but because your time has weight. Not everyone deserves gravity. At this stage, you realize something profound. Succeeding with zero support didn't harden you. It clarified you. It stripped away neediness, noise, and false intimacy. What remains is precision, direction, self-trust. You don't ask whether you can do hard things anymore. You already have. This is not the end. It's the foundation. The structure is set. The silence has done its work. Now we arrive at the quiet paradox, the one no one warns you about. Once you've succeeded without support, you don't feel triumphant. You feel calm, almost unsettlingly calm. The chaos that once drove you has burned itself out, replaced by something colder and more reliable, self-command. You no longer need proof from the outside world because you've become the proof, and that changes the game entirely. This is where the path forks. Many people reach competence and immediately seek comfort. They relax the standards. They explain their journey. They open the gates too wide, too fast. They confuse generosity with access. Don't make that mistake. Sovereignty is not maintained by nostalgia. It's maintained by structure. The same discipline that carried you out of isolation must now protect what you've built. Here is the final inversion you must accept. Support is now optional, but dependence is still fatal. You can collaborate, but you never lean. You can listen, but you never outsource judgment. You can receive, but you never forget how easily safety dulls instinct. The moment you start needing reassurance again, the edge erodes. Independence isn't a phase, it's a permanent operating system. You've learned that absence can be power. Now you learn that presence, when controlled, is impact. You don't show up everywhere. You choose where to appear. Scarcity is not a tactic. It's a reflection of standards. Your time, attention, and energy are no longer reactions. They are allocations. Each yes is deliberate. Each no is clean. People will try to rewrite history. They always do. They'll say they believed in you early. They'll imply shared ownership of your outcome. This isn't malice. It's human nature. Status attracts narrative parasites. You don't correct them. You don't argue. You don't validate the story. You simply continue forward. Reality outpaces revisionism. This is the final test of validation hunger. The old version of you wanted recognition. The new version understands leverage. Recognition fades. Leverage compounds. You don't need applause when your position speaks. You don't need witnesses when results are repeatable. You don't need approval when your systems work without you. Now something unexpected happens. Because you no longer need support, you can offer it strategically, not to everyone, not emotionally, not as rescue. You invest only where there is spark, discipline, and hunger. You don't save people from discomfort. You sharpen them. Support becomes a tool, not a tether. You give direction, not dependency. This is how cycles are broken. Not by coddling, but by modeling sovereignty. You become the figure you once needed, not because you're soft, but because you're stable. Your presence doesn't soothe weakness. It challenges potential, and that's rare. But keep one thing sacred, the memory of the silence. Never forget the empty room. Never forget the nights when no one checked in. That memory is not bitterness. It's ballast. It keeps you grounded when admiration arrives. It keeps you alert when comfort whispers. A piece of the cold must stay with you, not to harden your heart, but to anchor your standards. Understand this. You are now the asset, not your network, not your reputation, not your momentum. You. Your capacity to think clearly under pressure, to rebuild when stripped, to operate without permission. That is real wealth. Everything else is decoration. So when uncertainty returns, and it will, you won't panic. You'll recognize it as a signal, not a sentence. When obstacles appear, you won't ask who can help. You'll ask what can be controlled. When isolation revisits, you won't interpret it as loss. You'll use it as recalibration. The machine doesn't break anymore. It adjusts. There's a peace that comes with this that few people ever touch. Not happiness, not excitement, peace. The kind that comes from knowing no external variable can take your footing. If everything vanished tomorrow, you would rebuild, not because you're lucky, but because you're capable. That knowledge settles deep in the body. It changes how you stand, how you speak, how you decide. Now look at the final illusion dissolving. Humans are social animals, yes, but only until survival demands otherwise. The herd offers warmth, not direction. Safety, not destiny. You didn't reject people, you rejected sedation. You chose danger over numbness, and danger woke you up. The path of zero support was never about isolation. It was about initiation. It stripped you of crutches so you could grow legs of steel. Others were lifted by helicopters. You climbed. If the wind blows, they wobble. You don't. You are the mountain. So here is the awakening, clean, sharp, final. You were never abandoned. You were selected. Selected to build strength without witnesses. Selected to learn without shortcuts. Selected to carry weight without applause. The empty chair was never a vacancy. It was a throne, and now you're finally big enough to sit in it. This is where we end. Not with noise, not with applause, but with a decision. You now understand something most people will never allow themselves to see. No one was ever meant to save you. And that wasn't cruelty. That was design. The absence you once feared was not a void. It was space. Space to think without interference. Space to build without permission. Space to become dangerous in silence. You don't need the world to believe in you anymore. You've already crossed the only line that mattered. The moment you prove to yourself that you can move forward without reassurance. From here on, loneliness no longer weakens you. It sharpens you. Doubt no longer stops you. It signals where growth is required. You are not chasing safety. You are building sovereignty. You are not waiting for support. You are becoming the foundation. And if the room goes quiet again, you won't panic. You'll recognize it as familiar territory. You've been here before. You were forged here. So remember this when the nights feel long and the path feels empty. You are not alone. You are early. The throne was never missing allies. It was waiting for weight, and now you can carry it.